Hi everyone, Melissa from Melissa vs. Fibromyalgia here. I hope you're well. I'm doing a coffee catch up with you. I wanted to talk about how I am increasing my activity levels, particularly like my movement levels post-op. I thought this would be really applicable for how to increase your movement, maybe when you're having to start again. Maybe you're newly diagnosed, maybe you've just had a setback, maybe you've just had a baby. I've done this multiple times, so I've had to start from scratch each time I had a kid. My third and fourth, I had significant pelvis issues, so I was really starting from scratch physically and with my fatigue. And obviously now I am a couple of weeks post-op from a hysterectomy and endometriosis excision surgery. So it's quite a major surgery. It's impacted my mobility, but it's also impacted my fatigue. So I thought it would be a wonderful time to go back over kind of those principles of starting or restarting our movement with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. And we'll revisit the key rules because I've kind of created a few key rules. Now, I'm just a person who's lived with these symptoms for a long time, like 20 years. I've only started learning about it properly in the last 10 years, but I've made leaps and bounds. I've made big headway, and actually the irony is that I made the most steps forward when I reduced. So I used to be the push through girl. Everyone told me to push through, keep going, move, do what you can, to the point where my symptoms were awful. It was very hard to live with them, but I moved. And one of the things I did early on in my journey was actually pull back what I was doing and get smarter about boundaries. So first, when you are thinking of starting or recreating your movement goals or habits, the first thing is to start low and go slow. So start low means take where you think you can start, but I also want you to pull it back by at least 20%, because we often overdo it. We often think we can do more than we can, and there's no rush, there's no race, and this is nobody else's goals. These are our goals, and we need to be really mindful of what our goals are. So my goal is always symptom improvement. I'm not doing exercise for the sake of exercise. I'm not doing yoga for the sake of yoga. I'm doing it for symptom improvement and because I love it. So start low, cut down what you think you can do, and then go slow. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Say, for example, you think you can do 5 minutes. Maybe start with 3 minutes and see how it feels. Does it feel good while you're doing it? And does it feel good in the next 1 to 2 days? Because post-exertion malaise and post-exertion pain can come up later. For me, for some bizarre reason, it's 48 hours later rather than the next day. So it's always good to check. The second thing to remember is it's not always going to be linear. Your situation each day is not the same. How you sleep, your pain levels, your fatigue levels, your cycle if you're a female, everything changes all the time. So you can't expect your journey to go like this. So just have that in mind when you're working on it. And there is no race. We're looking for our goals. And if your goal is symptom improvement, then that doesn't necessarily mean that you're working up and up and up and trying to do 60-minute walks or 45-minute yoga classes. It means that you're doing, achieving what you want to achieve, and that it feels good at the time. So choose movement that feels good for you and that is accessible for you, and then take what you can start with. So let's talk about what I have done post-surgery. So in the first 2 days post-surgery, I was in a bit of a haze. Things had gone a little bit wonky with my medicine. I was in very high pain levels. I couldn't get out of the bed. So I was literally stretching my feet. So I was stretching my toes, my ankles, and engaging my calf muscles. And I was making sure that they were moving. And I was gently moving my shoulders and my arms and hands. And I was also taking deep breaths. My anesthesiologist suggested taking 5 deep breaths every half hour or so. And I did that religiously because breathing, believe it or not, is a good form of movement, especially when you're kind of that compromised, right? You are meant to breathe deeply, and when you're in a lot of pain and you're tired, you might not be doing so. We are all so busy these days. I don't think we take time to take full deep breaths. So that's literally what I started with, and that's what you can start with too. Deep breathing and wriggling your toes in bed. You can do bed stretches. I'm a big fan of yoga in the bed. I feature that in my Foundations of Yoga for Chronic Pain and Fatigue program. It is good for starting, it is good for continuing, it is good for during a flare. It is just excellent to be able to have a really accessible way to do it. Now, when I was able to start mobilizing, I really just had to do what I could, because obviously when you've had surgery, you're very limited, especially when it's abdominal surgery. But I literally, the first few days was only like a few hundred steps. I would painstakingly get up and I would walk what I call around my block. So I'd go through my lounge, kitchen, hallway, and back to my seat. Now, I was moving so slowly and so awkwardly that my Fitbit wasn't even tracking my steps. So I can't even tell you for sure how many steps I was doing at that point. But I was moving and it felt good for me. As I started to improve and mobility improved, then I was able to increase. So I changed my goals as I went. So I went from, to 1,500 to 2,000. I kind of overshot because I was thinking 2,500, but I went straight to 3 about 2 weeks post-op. So what I was doing is moving around the house, and then once or twice a day I'd go out into my yard and just walk across the patio and back. Mostly it was for the fresh air, but it was helping me get the steps up. And the problem for me is that I live up a very steep, tricky driveway. So getting out to take a walk, it felt a little bit too vulnerable. So once I'm ready to do that, then I will carefully go down. I will walk to one end of the street, the very short end. I'm talking literally 5 minutes. And then I'll start to go a little longer and a little longer. Now, I know that my previous baseline was 8,000 steps. So I know that I can move relatively quickly towards that, but I imagine I'll probably get some good feedback before then. I don't think I'll be rushing, but at least I know that that's where my baseline is, and that's where I have a sense. But I'm not in a rush, because as much as I want my body strong, I want my symptoms to be improving. I want strong muscles, but I want to manage my fatigue. And the other key thing that I use to manage fatigue as I'm recovering, so not just in movement, but I guess in general life, is I use my heart rate monitor on my Fitbit, because your heart rate is a very good way to give you feedback. So yesterday, I came up the stairs and I was putting some clothes away in the kids' drawers, and my heart rate shot to 120 beats per minute. And I felt terrible. And I tried to sit down on the bed and just breathe deeply. It wasn't calming down. So I got myself back downstairs and I sat down with my heat pack. And it took a good 15 minutes to just let it calm down. And then I felt exhausted. I just felt like someone had taken every bit of energy and ripped it out of me. Thankfully, it passed relatively quickly. So what I'm calling them is mini crashes. So obviously I'm at a point where I'm cutting back before it gets too severe. So I think it's really good to be able to track it in that way. So if you have a Fitbit or other tracker, and I've got a video and blog post about how I use my Fitbit and all the different ways that I use it to manage, but it is really helpful and very color coordinated today. Yes, I wear a lot of pink, but it is so useful. So those are my tips. That's how I'm increasing. In terms of yoga, so I'm on 6 weeks absolute no exercise, nothing. As soon as I get approval, I'll be starting my pelvic floor exercises, and once I have gotten approval, then I'm going to start with a routine which I'd like to film and share for you later, but it's something I was doing pre-surgery as well. So I get down on the floor, I do tabletop pose, and from there I do some pelvic floor exercises, and then I do cat and cow and Superman. So we put one leg and one arm up at the same time. It's very gentle internal ab work, nothing fancy. And then I do like a few bit of leg pieces of work, and like very gentle, very minor push-ups, and then bridge. So bridge pose is a wonderful way to get around issues. I have issues with my knees. If I'm careful, they're fine, but I can't do squats or lunges. It irritates them to no end. But bridge is a very gentle, wonderful way to engage all of those muscles without upsetting the knees and things like that. So I've got a lot of workarounds. I share all of these things. I talk about this a lot in the Foundations of Yoga for Chronic Pain and Fatigue. That's my course where you start or adapt your yoga practice. So if that's something you're looking at wanting to put into your system, that would be a good thing to come and join. I'll leave the link below if you're curious. Otherwise, I'll keep sharing my journey as I'm going. So it was start low and go slow. What you think you can start with, pull it back. Pay attention to your body. Feel how it feels at the time and afterwards, okay? Because we don't want to increase symptoms. And then be really, really mindful of your goal and keep your goal in mind. Is it symptom improvement? Is it cardiovascular health? What is it? And choose a form of movement that you like and will do. And then I'd say the bonus one is commit to it, right? You have to commit to it. And the thing that I love about yoga specifically is that even if you're having a bad day and you're in bed, you can do some. So if you can commit to yourself, I'm going to do 5 minutes every single day, you can do it because you can do it in bed. And I share things of how to do that. I've got classes on this channel as well if you'd like to give one a go. I have a free series as well, which gives you 4 classes of the 4 different types of yoga that I use. One of them is a wonderful gentle seated stretch class, so I'll put the link for that below. Please tell me, do you have any tips? What do you do when you are kind of starting from scratch again? How do you work to your movement goals? And do you like my tips? Have you used them yourself? And I'll catch you again soon.